Good evening. I am Jan Forkrud, Voter Services Chair of the League of Women Voters for Willmar, Minnesota. We welcome you, the candidates and viewers on RAC 8 and 81, anyway, viewers and people here at the Municipal Utilities Building tonight, as we hold this forum for the special Willmar School Board election to be held May 16, 2016, to fill the seat vacated by the resignation of Mike Carlson. Just a brief mention about our League. Our League of Women Voters mission is written in our handbook and describes our organization as a nonprofit, issue-oriented group that encourages active participation of citizens in government. We do not support any political party or candidate. We are a volunteer grassroots organization and members also of the State and National League of Women Voters. The 2016 theme for this group is Grow the Vote, Protect the Vote, and Empower and Educate Voters. Watch for information also about a new website that will be coming statewide, Your Vote, Your Voice, to be launched soon. So we welcome new members. You can use the phone number at the bottom of your screen to call and ask about membership after tonight. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Andrea Carruthers. She has been a member of League of Women Voters about 10 years, has served as our president in the past, and has served as a moderator in the 2012 election season. I turn it over to you, Andrea.
Welcome to all of you in the audience. Thank you for coming tonight, and certainly to all of you watching this live on RAC 18, RAC 181. I especially want to thank all 6 of our candidates for being here tonight. It's not easy to juggle schedules, and all 6 of you could come together tonight. This is going to be an hour-and-a-half candidates forum, and we have received a number of good questions, and we welcome additional questions. If the audience here tonight has a question, just raise your hand, and a leaguer will come with a card. You can write out your question, and we will include it and try to get through as many of these questions as possible. Another thing I wanted to mention to all of you is that we are so fortunate to have RAC 18 181 daily, not recording this, it is being recorded tonight, but daily having this live on the air starting tomorrow. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it'll be live, and you also can watch it if you stream onto the website of the City of Willmar. So at the end of our hour-and-a-half together, I'll give you the times. And Mary, remind me of that. The first thing we do tonight is to introduce each one of our candidates, and they have the privilege of doing that, making sure that you know of their name, exactly why they decided to have this particular challenge of a special election, which will be May 16th. And I also think it is important for them to, perhaps in the 2-minute opening address, to speak their mind as to what seems to be priority for them as individuals. So we'll begin with our first candidate. All the candidates are seated in alphabetical order. And please introduce yourself.
Good evening. Thanks to everyone who made possible tonight. My name is Abdurrahman Abdi, and I've been a resident since the last 9 years. I'm currently a student at St. Cloud State, majoring for pre-med. I decided to run for school board because I believe that public education is intimately tied to the vitality to our community. And I have the education and background, energy and dedication to make our school district stronger.
Thank you. Justin.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank the League for putting on this forum and the other candidates for attending tonight. I'm Justin Boss. I'm 38 years old and reside here in Willmar with my wife Sarah and 2 children who are both in the Willmar school system. And I like Abdi, believe that a strong school system is vital to our community, not only for preparing our students to be active members of our workforce and our community, but also for drawing in business and other organizations that would look at coming to Wilmer. Having strong schools is vital for that as well, too. As a graduate of Wilmer Schools in 1996, I feel like I received an excellent education here, and feel that our students are still receiving a great education. And I hope that as being part of the school board, that I can help make those decisions that will continue to have us have a great education system here in the future as well. I've volunteered on a number of boards and committees in the community and have that experience and feel that that service will allow me to be a great member of the school board as well.
Thank you. Bill?
Thank you. Well, for me, why I'm here tonight, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, and I think that will tell you why. I was born and raised in Valley City, North Dakota. I attended school there. By the time I was in high school, with a lot of encouragement from people in my families who were teachers, I attended Valley City State College. And in 1974, I took my first teaching position in Cyrus, Minnesota. It's a town between Morris and Starbuck. It's a great place to start your teaching career. It's a small school. Class sizes were around 15, I think is ideal. But consolidation was going on. I knew we would have to move. So in 1981, we moved to Wilmer, my wife taking a teaching job in London Spicer and myself in Wilmer. From that time, from 1981, I had 29 years in the school district to work as a special education teacher at the adolescent treatment unit, also at the junior high and at the senior high. And then for 10 years, I worked alongside of the school board as a director of human resources. My wife and I have 2 children, and they both attended K through 12 in Wilmer. They got a great education. It prepared them for college and their careers. I now have 3 grandchildren who will soon be attending Wilmer Public Schools. I want that same great education for them. I believe those years of teaching and working alongside of the school board provided me for the next step. And I think I am uniquely qualified to be on the school board. And now as a retired member of the community, hopefully I will be elected and be able to serve and continue those supporting students and education in the community. Thank you.
Chris?
My name is Chris Frank. I'll give you a little bit of a background on why I'm here and what motivates me. I grew up here in Wilmer. I'm an 04 grad. After that, I went off to St. Cloud State where I got an accounting degree. And then after that, I just kind of lingered around for a few years, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, until one day I just woke up and was, what am I doing? I have this amazing upbringing. I have a mind that I believe is capable of so much more, so I got my act together, went off to law school, did very well in law school. And at our graduation ceremony, they really beat it into you that you are now kind of public servants. I know everyone thinks lawyers are all crooked and everything. But the real reason I got into it, and the real reason a lot of us get into it, are we want to be public servants. We want to help people solve their problems. And I really took that statement to heart. And so I moved back to Wilmer, and I had those years that I lingered that I have to make up for, and I believe that I can make a difference in the community. I'm very eager to get involved, and I'm the youngest one here. And when I first thought of this, I'm like, this might be a long shot, but I figure, hey, it's worth it, try. So I threw my hat into the ring, I'm here. That's kind of what's motivating me.
Thank you. Mike?
Hi, I'm 43 years old. I live in Wilmer here with my wife Jess. I've got 2 somewhat grown boys. We've got a 19-year-old son who's going out to Ridgewater College and a 16-year-old who is a sophomore out at the Wilmer Senior High School. I'm a 1991 grad here of Wilmer, went out to present-day Ridgewater, and I pretty much haven't left this town. I consider this Wilmer my hometown. I have been involved in the chamber ambassador. I'm a 20-plus year member on our Wilmer Ambulance Service. Children are a passion of mine. I run the bus company in town, and my motivation here is just mainly to give the kids the best education that we possibly can.
Thank you. And Jennifer.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Mendoza, formerly Jennifer Ekstrom, and I'm a native of Wilmer, born right here in Rice Hospital. All 4 of my children that were birthed to me were born here also. I attended Wilmer schools for the majority of my education, leaving to go to college down at Southwest State in Marshall. But when I was here, I attended both the high school and the ALC, and currently I work with at-risk youth. I have 5 children ranging from the age of 22 to down to 3. And I guess I'm running for school board because I would like to integrate community members more. I guess when I was going to school and when I was a young parent, I maybe felt a little bit more intimidated by the school systems. And I just want to reach out to other parents and other individuals who may feel that way to let them know that it is part of their community, and that they do have a voice, because as a parent, I am my children's advocate. I, advocate for the children I work with or the young people I work with, and I plan to be here probably for the rest of my life. So I really wanted to be vested in the education that my children received, as well as the children of the community, because as some of the other members had mentioned, I feel like if our schools are not strong enough to keep our children, let them educate, then it's difficult to have our workforce and bring more people into our community. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. So we'll begin with the questions. The first question is kind of two-part question. So we begin with Abdi. What is your understanding of the role of a board member in the governance of the district, and what qualities do you bring to the board should you be elected?
The first question, the role of being a board is to take care about the decisions that is made on the decision that based on from the community, and it's been just you can just make a decision that you collect from the community. I'm not kind of a familiar for that question. Could you repeat for me, please?
Surely.
Yes.
What is your understanding of the role of a board member in the governance of the district, and what qualities do you bring to the board should you be elected?
The quality that I will bring on the board is to bring a new effort and energy to the community, and I will encourage to the students. I will encourage the students to not be dropped for the school. That's it.
Very good. And on to Justin Boss. Would you like me to repeat it, the question?
Please.
Okay. What is your understanding of the role of the board member in the governance of the school district, and what qualities would you bring to the board should you be elected?
I believe the role of the school board is just to set the policies that will allow for the students in our schools to receive the best possible education here that we can provide them. And I believe one of my qualities that would be beneficial to that is just my willingness to immerse myself in learning about any of the issues and all the sides to that issue, and being educated on any of the matters to make the proper decision for our students.
Very good. Mr. Busta.
Yes. I believe the role of a school board member is to listen to the community and understand what it is that they are expecting that the school district should provide for their students, to establish the policies and procedures, to collaborate with administrators when they bring issues to you, to help implement those policies. The superintendent is your primary connection to the school. You work with them. I believe in following the chain of command, but you do listen to everybody. I can remember board members, during the time I served as an HR director, they would go out and attend meetings in each of the buildings so that they could listen to teachers. I think that's an excellent way to stay in the loop on what's really happening in the schools. So I believe that kind of communication is vital to be a good board member.
Very good. Thank you. Now I'll ask the other three, would any of you like to comment on your qualifications and your understanding of the governance of the school board? Mr. Frank?
Well, I'll just throw in there for the legal mumbo jumbo of it. The board is an administrative function of the executive side of the state government, even though it performs more of a legislative function. So its main things are setting policy, managing the budget, things of that nature. And I believe that's one of the things where I might not have a whole lot of education experience. In fact, you could say I have none. But I do understand the role of this board very well. In law school, we were given classes on writing legislation, reading legislation, all that kind of stuff, and we're pretty much groomed to be politics for probably about a fourth of what we're learning in law school. But so that's what I could bring to the table. But
Mike, would you like to say anything?
Sure, I'd like to just also add that you also have to have a good rapport, not only with the building administrators, but also with the kids themselves. Because, I mean, a student can bring a plan or idea that might be a great idea that none of us have ever thought about. And to just bring that back to the board and see what they say, and I'm not afraid to stand up for what I feel is right for the entire district and for the kids.
Very good. And Jennifer, would you like to make a comment at all?
Well, I feel like the board can benefit from inclusion, from the students' ideas, from parents, from the community at large, and I've done a lot of public planning, maybe they'd call it. I'd been on the Cinco de Mayo committee for years, and I feel like that really helped me break down barriers within myself, where I feel great to bridge people to resources. I think that anything can be a resource, from our senior citizens, helping out with different things. I know there was a question that said, what would you do if there was a deficit in an area? And I think we should look to our community for all the resources that we have, because Willmar's a great community, and we really need to shine with what we have.
Thank you. Now, the second question, and we'll begin with Mr. Frank. There appears to be an absence of serious teacher contract negotiations at this time, and it affects the teachers' morale. Do you favor hiring professionals for contract negotiations or negotiating directly?
are you referring to the hiring of the lawyer to negotiate the contracts?
Yeah.
Obviously, we were just joking about this earlier. I mean, I can't get that upset about that. I am a lawyer, so from my perspective, yay. But I don't know, I guess I'd have to know more of the background of what's actually going down there. What has the board seen in their past when negotiating all the stuff? Or all the differences that are coming up? Do they feel they're being strong-armed by, things like Education Minnesota is a very powerful union? But to me, it seems like the board is already winning anyway with the process of laying off all the teachers and then rehiring them every year to get around the tenure statutes. So I guess I'm not sure the professionals are needed, especially where the funding for them, where's that coming from? So I guess I'd have to know more background information on what their concerns are, why they feel they needed professionals, but.
Okay. And Mr. Kubish, your response to that?
Yep, and I will kind of piggyback off what Chris said. I also feel that we should do as much as direct negotiations as we possibly can without hiring an outside source to do it. We've got plenty of professionals within the school board and within our district themselves, rather than going out and hiring an attorney to try to figure it out for us. I feel that we should try to figure it out for ourselves.
And Jennifer Mendoza?
I can tell you that it's very straining on a person to feel like you know when the end date to your employment will end. I've done work with nonprofits, with grants, and it's very stressful. So I think negotiating with teachers would be the way to go, and make them feel secure. You know, we don't want to lose our best teachers because we waited. So that would be my thoughts.
Thank you. Any of the three of you want to respond to this particular question?
I would.
I will.
Okay, we'll begin with Bill Busta.
Okay. The style of bargaining that is being practiced right now is not uncommon. It's traditional or adversarial. And that kind of bargaining has positions. Usually the board starts out low and the teachers start out high, and somewhere you meet in the middle. And it works. A lot of school districts do that. But it also can become protracted, and it can create some hard feelings. So it doesn't always work everywhere. My own experience, I both represented the teachers and the school board in negotiating teacher contracts. I preferred a more collaborative, but that takes both parties making a firm commitment to doing that. In order, you actually can't get the state of Minnesota to come in and help you unless you signed up and said we're collaborative bargaining. And they'll come out and walk you through that whole process. I'd prefer that the district do that. As a board member, I would encourage that method first, but it does take two people. It does take both sides to make a commitment that we are going to be collaborative. It's not easier. You identify problems and solve the problems and work to that end. I would like to see it get ended, because I agree, it is stressful on everybody, and that's not good for kids.
Very good. And Mr. Abdi?
I will go with what the other candidate says, Mr. Chris. And since the other board is already in that they're talking about and they're making a decision, it's already an information. We don't have a lot of information about that, so we will just leave about the all board members what they said about that.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess I would just kind of agree with what Chris said. With not knowing all the information, I'm not going to pass judgment on the current board, but the teacher negotiation being unsettled, I guess, would be a priority for me in wanting to get that contract completed as soon as possible. I don't like that unfinished business being left out there, and that would be a priority for me.
All right. Now, we will begin with Mr. Boss with this question. What is tenure, and how do you feel about it?
Well, tenure is after your amount of time of service as a teacher where you're, I think, more of a guaranteed position, not being cut. And I guess my opinion on tenure is, I think you need, experience is important for teachers, and I think that's a good thing to have experienced teachers here, but I also feel that maybe sometimes, a younger teacher who's coming in who may be an excellent teacher may sometimes be cut because of that too, which isn't always probably necessarily the best thing either. So I think teaching is a tough position to evaluate because the makeup of your class and a lot of outside factors. It's not like some other positions where you can have more of a set evaluation. There's many more things that affect that. So I guess overall I would support tenure, but would like to see the possibility of maybe having some of our younger good teachers have an opportunity to not be cut as well.
And Mr. Busta,
Could you repeat the question again?
what is tenure and how do you feel about it?
Okay. The system of tenure allows a school district to look at a teacher for 3 years if they haven't been tenured in another school district. And at that 3-year mark, if they're offered another contract, then they become tenured and they get on the seniority list. And if they've been tenured in another school district, then they come to a school district that's just 1 year of probationary, and then they can be tenured. I think if you use a system properly, 3 years is a time when you can evaluate a teacher and decide whether that's someone that's going to fit in your district. I too agree with what I've just heard, that it's very unfortunate that we can have a very young, excellent teacher, happens to be at the bottom of a seniority list. Once they have been tenured, they might be cut before another teacher, and maybe you wanted to keep that teacher. So I've seen that time and time again, but haven't necessarily seen a system replace that. So it has served us well for many years. If there's some improvements that someone can introduce, I would like to look at it, but it's a good system, I believe.
Very good. Mr. Abdi.
I agree the system, but just look at it like give a time, to look about the person before you're in charge, like 3 years. It's a good time, but it can be better or different person, like someone who graduated from right now, a person who has been staying there for a long time with no teaching any. It can be different, having a new energy and can make some change for this curriculum.
Thank you. The three of you, any of you want to respond to this question? Mr. Frank.
I'll pipe up. This is a real hot topic across the nation right now. Everyone's dealing with tenure issues. I know Education Minnesota has been working real well with the legislature, and they've been moving towards some slight reform throughout our state. As Mr. Busta mentioned, right now it's still basically heavily seniority, even though they're starting to try to move away for it and making it just, instead of it being only seniority, they want it to be just part of the equation. But really, I think there needs to be an entire switch over to some sort of performance standard that is what keeps teachers around rather than seniority, or at least have seniority just be an equal part of it compared to performance standards and just evaluations on how the teacher did. I know there's a whole lot of reform coming. There was a big California Supreme Court case that they declared all their tenure laws, statutes unconstitutional. So, reform is coming. And it's just, everyone needs to work together and try to progress a little bit faster and get it taken care of.
Thank you. Either of you would like to respond? Yes,
Sure.
Mike?
First off, I would like to thank Mr. Busta for explaining to me, who's not a teacher or an educator, what exactly tenure is. So thank you. At first, when I saw that these 103 teachers were laid off, I kind of went, what's the point of that? But once I found out the reasoning behind it, I kind of calmed down and mellowed out a little bit. But I also feel like with Chris that something does need to change. And rather than just because of seniority, you also get a performance, if you want to call it pay or step or whatever. But if we're having problems with teachers within that 3-year, 10-year period, don't lay off a mass quantity of them. Take care of the problem teachers, I guess, and go that route. That's just how I feel.
Very good. Anything to add, Jennifer, at this point?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go on to the next question, and it'll be directed first to Mr. Kubish. How do we attract teachers that better reflect the diversity in our community?
I feel that to better attract them, we need a diverse board, really, and we need a more diverse city council. And those of us that are sitting up here have all seen it. Our city is becoming more diverse. And I feel that we just need to become a more diverse group of leaders, I feel, to more attract them.
Ms. Mendoza.
I also agree that we need diversity in our governance to bring diversity into the classroom. However, I attended a meeting sometime within the last year at the community center where they were discussing this issue, and they were discussing how they could help, let's call, redirect people's career. So if you had a career, for instance, let's say in accounting, where you could then teach it, and I don't know whatever happened to that, but I think that's a great idea. I myself have a bachelor's in science for justice administration, and with the interactions that I've had with my at-risk youth, it really makes me feel like I would like to give it a shot to be a teacher. It has to be one of the hardest jobs in the world because you're not always respected or appreciated. It's like being a parent, but there's 30 of them. And, you know, I think that if people can pass the background checks and they have the fire to try to teach youth, I think that that is very impactful, because I remember teachers who were the greatest, and I remember teachers who weren't so great. And I think opening up the doors to other professions to become teachers would be a great way to make that happen.
Mr. Frank.
Could you repeat the question again,
Surely.
too?
How do we attract teachers that better reflect the diversity of our community?
Well, that's a difficult one. I mean, you have to get out into it. I'm not sure it's just diversity is what we actually need in the teaching staff. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I know St. Cloud State's got a great education program. Maybe you start outreaching to these larger schools and start to attract, if you're looking for either Hispanic or Somalian teachers. But I think we definitely need a presence of people that can communicate and mix with those cultures better. I think Wilmer wasn't doing a very good job of it when I was a student back in graduating before '04 range. And I have little cousins now, and it seems like it hasn't improved at all. So, well, I don't know if just bringing those diverse teachers in will solve the problem. It could be a step, but I mean, the teachers, I think, have to, or at least the administration, everyone needs to start to get involved in the community and the culture a little bit more, and starting to integrate our city, because our city is very diverse, especially compared to the other cities around it.
Thank you. Now, would any of the remaining three like to comment on that?
I would.
Bill Busta, all right.
There are a lot of school districts in the state of Minnesota that have diverse populations. They're larger than Wilmer, and they have gone a long ways to attract and get diverse teachers. And how they did that is essentially they grow their own. They have programs in high school where they're encouraging minority students to become teachers. And they will set up, you know, anything from a classroom to an after-school activity, but they encourage them to go in that direction. And diversity is big. I'd like to see more male students in the elementary as well. I think there's room for gender as well. I just think we should target that. We should look at districts that are solving that problem and ask them what they're doing and try to repeat that here. I think there are possibilities for us to go a ways. We have the students. We can turn them into teachers.
Good, thank you. Either of the two of you like to make a comment?
I guess I would just kind of agree with what Bill said. I don't think we're turning away applicants that are minorities. I think there just aren't a lot out there. So I think you do need some sort of program to get more people interested in the teaching profession so that there is that pool to draw from.
Very good.
Nope.
Okay. Now, next question, and we'll direct it first to Mr. Busta. Do you believe children have enough time for lunch, recess, and physical activity during the school day?
No. I don't know that I have the 29 years that I was teaching in a part of this community, what I observed is that they had to eat too early, and sometimes they were eating too late. I think that architecturally, we needed larger lunchrooms in some of the elementary buildings, especially when we added classrooms at Roosevelt. So and I think there's room for improvement there, and I'm hoping that part of the new building is going to take a look at that, because I think it's a physical structure thing. I know there's a lot of pressure that's being put on us for math and science and achievement testing, and that kind of pushes out some of the Phi-Ed classes. I seem to remember reading a couple of years ago that there was some school board meetings that were a little controversial, because I think the board was telling some of the administration that they needed to keep some of the Phi-Ed classes, and that kind of went away because we're evaluated by our test scores. But no, I support a better eating time and Phi-Ed.
Very good. Mr. Abdi?
Could you repeat? Could you say?
I will. Do you believe children have enough time for lunch, recess, and physical activity during their school day?
Yep, I guess so far the schools that I visit, like Roosevelt and middle schools, they have enough time to get a lunch and whatever. What did you add, like a lunch, or what was the other thing? I guess I agree that they have enough time.
All right. And Mr. Boss?
I would say that they do not have enough time. I know for my children, I know they were, in the winter, they'd have to eat lunch with their coats and snow pants on so they could get outside for recess, because there wasn't time to eat lunch and then put that gear on and then go out. So, and I know Phi-Ed has been cut back too, and I think, like Bill said, a lot of that is because we have such a focus on math and reading and teaching to those test requirements. I know that's part of what we have to do, but I think having physical education is important for our students as well too. So I guess I don't have a great solution other than if you extended the school day somehow, but that's probably not going to go over real big with everyone either. But I think, as Bill said, I think the addition of the new elementary school should hopefully allow for those lunch times to be spread so they aren't starting so early and not having as many students passing through a cafeteria at one time, which will hopefully be able to help extend some of those times so that students do have more time.
Very good. Any more comment from the three of you? Anyone like to make another comment?
I will, just because I see it daily. I feel that the K-5 do not have enough time to eat their lunch. At the middle school and the high school, they've got almost double, I think, time to eat. And at the middle school and high school, they have more physical activity. But we think we've all up here have children, or they're grown up, but we all know that they need to run around so they can sit down and concentrate and figure out stuff. But kids need to get rid of some of that energy throughout the day, or it's just not going to soak in.
Very good. Yes, Jennifer?
I have a fifth grader currently at Kennedy, and Kennedy school starts at around 8:30, and my son doesn't eat until 1:30. So I feed him in the morning at home. I encourage him to eat at school, but I feel like a hungry child is not a child who's going to receive information very easily. I believe when I went to school, we had snack. I know that that's not always possible, but I really think that we have to feed the children when they're in schools, because we don't know what happens when they go at home. So I would encourage extending lunchtime, because it's not only a lunchtime when you sit down, at least at my house, when we sit down to eat, we don't just sit down to shove our face. We sit down to enjoy the people who are around us. And I know that younger kids have to be encouraged to eat faster, but the truth is that eating isn't just about sitting down and consuming. It's also about relating to other people. You know, we don't want them to talk in the classrooms as much. You know, we want them to stay focused. So I think that making the lunchtime longer, as well as recess and physical activity, because like these gentlemen have said, you can't control all of their energy. So you have to let them express it. And I think that that would lead into a better understanding and acceptance of what they're learning.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question. We'll begin with Ms. Mendoza. There are concerns about the continued cutting of music and art programs in the schools. Do you have any thoughts on how to address this issue?
I believe that if we could find money, art and music are great. Some people don't have the ability to find their creativeness or even really find themselves in life. Sometimes it feels like we're really pushed forward. I see a lot of parents walking and they're kind of just pulling their kids' hand instead of actually walking with them. And I feel like in order to get the best out of our students and out of our community, we have to encourage them not only to be smart, book smart, but to be able to open up their mind. And I would encourage more art and music. In fact, you know, we have, personally, my children have not wanted to join band. So I brought them to Whitney Music. And let me tell you that I feel sparked something in their minds. And I may have to pay for some music classes, but at least they're going to get the opportunity to try. And if they choose to stay with it, excellent. And if they don't, that's all right. I feel like as parents, it's very difficult because we don't know always what our children are getting in school as far as art and music. So personally, I try to bring those things into my own house. You know, for instance, just painting, stuff like that, because it is important to open up their minds.
Thank you. Mr. Frank.
Yes, this is one of the issues that when I began, I thought I had a similar view as Ms. Mendoza, whereas if we have the funding and if we don't, maybe it is one of the first things to cut because, you know, sciences and math are all more important. But I've actually flip-flopped from what I've gone out and talked to people and done my own research or looked at studies and just the science behind how much it helps change and develop a brain, especially as when you're younger, getting involved in music. It's something that a lot of us might not do later in our lives, and I think there's actually more of a problem with all that stuff at the college level, and it's maybe too prevalent up there, but it's great for when you're little, because it's helping develop your mind, it's broadening it. It's also, getting back to some of the Phi Ed stuff, it's a break from the normal class structure. You get out, you get to play music, you get to take a break, and then you can come back and focus on math afterwards. I know we had fourth grade orchestra, or was it band, cut from the recent budget cuts, and then somebody donated the money to reinstitute it, but I've been talking to people and it hasn't been put back into the agenda yet, which is kind of concerning me because from what I'm getting from rumors wise is that they're trying to make it more of an extracurricular activity, as in you join band and it'd be like sports after school. And I think that's a real problem too, because then you're gonna have to pay for that. People aren't gonna be able to get the same. I'm running out of time, so I'll just stop there.
Very good. Mr. Kubish.
And I'll just touch and say that I agree with Ms. Mendoza and Mr. Frank that we shouldn't be cutting music and arts because that is the kids' way. If they're not physical, to go out and run around, or that's their time to just let go for that moment in time. And I think I've seen it on one of my emails that came through that a student who's involved in music or the arts has a higher increase of making more money per year than a student who is not involved in a music or arts, which I feel goes back to that if we just keep cramming science and math and English down these kids' throats, they're not going to be able to have that time to just run around and just, or sit down and focus on music or just chill, as we call it. Just put on some headphones or play a electric guitar or drums. I mean, give a kid a drum set and he's happy as can be.
Thank you. Any of the three of you like to comment on that?
I think
Boss.
having a music and arts is an integral part of education and forming that we have well-rounded students graduating from our schools. And specifically with music, with the cuts there, I know with the budget, some things need to be cut, and unfortunately, music was part of that, but something had to be cut. But I think it was great that we had an organization like Music Matters that stepped up to bring some of those programs back to our schools. So, I mean, I think that's one thing to look at there. If there isn't funding within the budget, it would be great if we didn't have to have community funding to have music, but if that's what's necessary to keep it in our schools, I think it's great to have partnerships like that in our community to keep some of those programs going as well.
Very good. Mr. Busta, you'd like to respond?
A few seconds anyway. I think there's a direct connection between students in extracurricular, music, art, and other curricular, and how well they do in the classroom. I think you can prove that those that are involved in those activities do better overall in the classroom, better grades, better behaved, that kind of stuff. Music Matters has stepped up more than once to write the district a check and help us, and it's hats off to them, and thank you for that. When it comes to the cutting process, I like a method where you study other school districts to see what they're doing. What does their music model look like? And to give us advice, to give us some guidance on where should we be. Are we a district that doesn't have as much music as, say, another city in the state of Minnesota, another school district our size? That can help us, give us some perspective. I think Wilmer's always been kind of a music place. They like their music, and that's great. So I hesitantly cut anything as a board member, and the answer, of course, is more money. Then we wouldn't have to do that. So, thank you.
Very good. All right. Now we will start another question, and I'll direct it to Mr. Abdi. From the Wilder Research Study in 2012, the Wilmer Public School population at that time was 42% children of color. What experience, whether personal or professional, do you have in dealing with racially diverse environments, and where did you learn from this experience?
Since I graduated from Wilmer Senior High School back in 2012, there was a lot of Somali students, and there's a lot of immigration students coming from the school. And since I am a part of doing a lot of activity from the community of Wilmer, I learned from the community that there's a lot of diversity that is happening from Wilmer Senior High School. And to educate them and give them more chance, we need someone to encourage them and explain and teach how the importance of the school.
Very good. Mr. Boss.
Could you repeat the question?
From the Wilder Research Study in 2012, the Wilmer Public School population at that time was 42% children of color. What experience, whether personal or professional, do you have in dealing with racially diverse environments, and what and where did you learn from these experiences?
I guess with my job as a funeral director, we work with all the citizens of Wilmer here in the area, so I've worked with the diverse populations in that respect. And I guess I view it as, I don't view them anyone any differently than another person. It doesn't matter the color of their skin, so I don't know that there's a unique thing there, but as each population. But I feel like my work with them, I've known, I've met with Abdi several times on some things. So, working with the Somali population, I have experience there, and with the Hispanic population as well. So.
Very good. Mr. Busta?
In the role of HR person, I was somewhat at the point of hiring and putting out the advertising for positions, gathering the applications. We were always looking for minorities. It was a highlight to get one that was interested in moving to Willmar. We made a point focusing on their and making them feel welcome during the interview process in the hopes that we could find a home for them here. As a teacher, I had opportunities. The 42% that you're referring to, I'm guessing that wasn't the high school, because I think that the elementary is balanced a little more at this time. So
This was K-12.
yeah,
Yeah, in total. K-12.
so I had opportunities at the junior high and the senior high to work with students. So that's my experience. Certainly there were seminars and discussions along the way that we had in school to talk about cultural differences, so that we could understand what students meant by what they were saying, and even their eye contact, their postures, just to establish better relationships. So a lot of those experiences brought me to where I am. So.
How about the other three? Would you like to say something? Yes.
This is actually probably the issue that I'm most passionate about, and I'll say my experience with it is I lived it. I was in 04, and we weren't, I don't think we were quite 42% at that time, but we were still very high. And I saw firsthand what I thought was how horribly Willmar handled the problem with pretty much the entire staff was white, and I would see some of these kids, the Hispanics, would all be put out into groups and sent out into the pod to be pretty much ignored, because it wasn't because they didn't like them or anything, but it was nobody knew how to deal with them, nobody could relate to them, and I think that's the big problem, is we need to solve that. And I don't know if it is bringing in a more diverse workforce would be great if that solves it, or just somehow getting everyone involved into those different cultures and those different communities, and because where that integration as a community starts with is the kids at that young age, getting everybody together and letting everyone make everyone better, and then it'll trickle up or grow up from there.
Sure, I'll add some. I'm thinking back as everybody's talking back, especially when Mr. Frank said when he graduated in 2004, it wasn't quite 42%. I'm thinking back in the late 80s, early 90s, when it was less than 10%, I think, was either Hispanic or Somalian at the time. And I've gotten to see the diversity grow. And I would also agree with Mr. Frank that we haven't handled it all that well. We're getting better. I've seen it both on the busing side and dealing with I shouldn't say dealing, but having both the Hispanic liaison and the Somali liaison help us and assist us with students that we don't quite understand. And by talking with them more and getting to know their culture more, I'm able to be better engaged in both the Hispanic culture and the Somali culture as a school bus driver and a person who oversees the bus drivers. I can better educate my drivers.
Very good. Would you like to add something, Jennifer?
Well, I am racially diverse, and let me tell you, it's very interesting, because things that my Caucasian family does, my Latino family would find quite odd. But I think that it's always good to look for similarities. I know that when I went to college out in Marshall, was probably one of the first times that I had interacted with more of a Somali population. And I think just asking questions, obviously not intrusive questions, but, just asking questions to learn really makes people feel empowered, because then you're not really trying to make them feel like outsiders, but more accepted. So I guess I like to learn about different cultures and just look at the way that we can find the similarities. Education to Latino people seems very different. I've been in the schools while they've been doing conferences, and one thing you will often hear is how is my child's behavior? Because for Latino parents, it is very important that your child behaves, because that's what we can have control over. And then we just expect them to learn once they're in the classrooms. But I think it's just the fact that we need to know that about each other. You know, it is going to be Willmar. We are very diverse, and that is one of the blessings that we have here.
Thank you. The next question, I'll direct it to Mr. Frank. In your opinion, how can members of the school board collaborate with the citizens of the school district?
Well, I think definitely getting out into the community more, maybe setting up something like a town hall meeting. I guess, you have the normal meetings, but even just setting up sessions where maybe people can call in, maybe each board member takes a turn doing it. Just sessions where they get out more into the population, talk to people, do more polling of the population. I don't see a lot of that. I don't know if the West Central Tribune could get involved in that, if something that way, but just, and really maybe not just through them, but setting policy that makes the administration kind of get out into the community more, especially into these racially diverse groups, just to get more of a dialogue open with all the different cultures in our city. I mean, obviously you can go to the meetings and talk to them there, but almost take more of a proactive step. Instead of letting them come to you, go out and get them, talk to them. I think polling would be a good idea, just things like that.
Mr. Kubish.
And I'll just touch on what Mr. Frank said. Like, I believe it wasn't like last week or 2 weeks ago, the Willmar PD did a meet your officers thing at the Cornerstone Coffee Shop. Why not do a come and meet your school board member? That way it's non-confrontational, and they can ask the difficult questions that they wouldn't want to ask at a recorded school board meeting. It'd just be a way for us as school board members to just go out and answer questions or just be out there.
Ms. Mendoza.
I also would like more involvement from the community with the school board. I apologize because I don't feel I've been as involved as I should have been, but I felt very busy at the time. Life hasn't slowed down, but I've just decided that I can handle more than I think. And I believe that in my position currently, it's a voluntary program. It's called the GIA program. And anyways, whenever I do an intake, I always stress the grievance form. And I let them know that if they have a problem, I would like them to call my boss. Not because I want to be, fired. I love my job. But I want them to feel empowered that if I'm doing something wrong, that they have the right and the power to go above my head and discuss that. So I think that it's very important to get the collaboration, not only from the parents, but also the students. Because if you ask a student, they're very truthful. At least that's what I find in my job. And it's the school, and it's there to serve the community and the students, so just getting more of their input is always helpful.
Thank you. Any of the three of you like to comment? Make an additional comment?
I guess I would just agree that it would be, like the other said, just making yourself available, being out in the community, so that people can approach you with their concerns. So, I mean, there's a variety of ways to do it, as people have mentioned, kind of a meeting or even this day through social media. I know some of the school board members have Facebook pages where people could post there, and, wide variety of ways to make yourself more accessible.
Very good.
And if I could make a quick comment, being in the community, if you guys remember Kathy Leadham, she was probably the role model as a superintendent for getting out in the community. You would see her at 3 different extracurricular activities in one night. She wanted to be there and be seen, and someone could ask her questions. I know that was a big reason why she was there, to interact with people. I've been retired for a number of years, and it's amazing how many times I will have someone tell me something about the school that I know is not accurate. It's half true, but it's inaccurate. And it's not that people are malicious or something, it's just either they're not reading, or the communication hasn't gone out as thoroughly as it could have been, or in a way that people would understand it. But I think board members and administration have a huge responsibility to make sure that they communicate on what they do. Interesting that when I ran into someone that, once they found out I was running, they said, okay, 2 things, Bill. Make sure you respond to my emails, because I sent one, I only got 1 response. And the second thing you do is just because you understand what's going on at the school board meeting doesn't mean that I understand what I'm listening and watching it on there. So please explain what you're doing so that I can understand what it is. Because you guys are educators, you know what's going on there, but put it at a level that people who aren't there and don't live this every day, they can understand it as well. So I've gotten a couple takeaways, I think, from the community that tell me that's what you need to do, and you're going to reach more people.
Very good. Mr. Abdi, would you like to respond?
Yep, being on a board member, it's a huge and responsible. And like my community, most of them, they don't attend the school board meetings. They don't know anything about what's going on about the school, the system, or the curriculum. The best way to reach them is like, having like a social media or a Facebook, to boast. And most of the people, they read and write, they can get information through the media.
Very good, thank you. The next question, and we'll begin with Ms. Mendoza. In this area, open enrollment has become competitive. As a school board member, how would you address this?
I would hire and retain the best teachers there are. I would also make all of our students feel welcome. I think that that's a big thing. Gosh, besides that, it's really hard, I think just having great facilities, which we're building currently, and growing the schools, but changing them slightly could help in that.
Very good. Mr. Frank?
Yes, I know it's been a problem for Wilmer as they've been losing students lately. And I think a lot of it has been blowback because of the racial diversity here. And I think we need to look at that. We need to sell the school. We need people to want to come here. It's Ms. Mendoza mentioned the better facilities, but really we got to stop looking at the whole racial issue as a problem and realize that it's a great opportunity. We could have something in this area that no other city around or near us has with how diverse we are. When you get out into the real world, especially when the children get off to college, this is what they're going to see. So we need to change it into a strength, a reason that kids will want to come here instead of leaving to go to other schools. So,
Mr. Kubish?
I'm just going to say I agree fully with Mr. Frank.
Very good. Would anyone like to respond to that question?
I will just agree with Jennifer says.
I would just say that we have some students leaving to go elsewhere, but we also have students coming in from other districts as well, too. So there's not only the negative side to open enrollment, there's the positive side as well, too. And I think some of the educational programs we offer here in Wilmer that aren't available in some of the other districts in the area would be something we could promote as well, too, to bring more of those students in as well, too.
Very good.
Could you repeat the question again?
Sure, be glad to. In this area, open enrollment has become competitive. As a school board member, how would you address this?
We attract, historically, we attract more kids than we lose. At least that was true during the 2000s, up until I retired. And I don't know that's information that is publicized very often. But even if that is still the case, I don't have a problem with open enrollment. And I think we do have to sell ourselves and we do have to promote ourselves. And I have seen other school districts put up billboards and say, especially when they're close to larger school districts, they'll put up billboards. This is what I offer. This is what you can take. I think there's a lot of opportunities at the high school. The block schedule has created some interesting classes. A lot of kids, that's probably where we get most of the open enrollment. So I think we need to sell ourselves and not be afraid of other school districts. Ask people why they leave if you find out they left, and you might get a great answer, and you can turn it around for that family. So.
Very good. The next question, I'll direct it to Mr. Abdi to begin with. According to a 2012 Wilder research study, Wilmer students speak 22 different languages in the home, and 4 out of 10 students have limited English proficiency. Given this, how familiar are you with the English Language Learners Program?
It's when I went to high school, for example, I came from Kenya. I was speaking English, but I was speaking with the British English. They have a hard time to understand some of my teachers, but I choose to go back to that program, and it helps me a lot because there's a lot of students who don't speak quite well when they came here, so they spend more time to learn English, and it's a good program for those students, and I agree for that, to have more teachers, to have more ELL teachers for that program and to teach for the kids.
Mr. Boss.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with what Mr. Abdi is saying. If a student is coming in not speaking English, it's not only affecting their learning of the language, but if they're being taught in English, being taught science or math, they're probably not learning a whole lot in those classes as well either. So I think need to have a strong focus in those ELL classes so that our students can not only learn the English language, but also learn in their other classes as well too.
Mr. Busta.
You know, it's got to be very frustrating if you're in a classroom and you're speaking a language and you don't quite understand what your teacher is saying. It's got to be incredibly frustrating, and so getting that student up to speed as quickly as possible is what the English Language Learner Program tries to do. My heart goes out to their efforts because kids who don't normally misbehave might start misbehaving because they don't get all the effort and attention that they can. It's been a place that Wilmer needs to excel at. So I support all those efforts, and I understand that what problems I can create for teacher and student in the classroom. So if I'm asked, do you support those efforts? You're darn right I do. It's some of the best money we can spend is helping those kids get up to speed in the classroom.
Would any of the three of you like to comment on this question?
I would just add to, yeah, extremely important. I mean, you have to be able to communicate, to get along, to interact, to break down barriers, to learn. So it's extremely important. I'd even go so far as to say, put more emphasis on the English teaching ones too, but even for the English-speaking students that are already proficient with it, start teaching them more languages too, because, I mean, America's mocked abroad at how incredibly deficient we are at being able to speak anything besides English for the white population at least. So just as a whole, language needs to have more emphasis in the schools.
I believe that ELL is a great opportunity for the students and that it should be offered as the population needs it. However, I also believe that immersing yourself in a language is a great way to learn. Me and my children speak only 2 languages, and I'm hoping that they will speak 3 to 4 by the time they're out of high school. Because I do believe that America is very English-focused. And that's not a bad thing. It's a great thing to be able to communicate with each other, but Spanish keeps my community united, or, at least that gives us other similarities. So I think that knowing English is very important, but I also think that other languages should hold as much.
Thank you. All right. The next question, and we'll begin with Mr. Boss. What ideas, if any, do you have for addressing the current budget deficit?
I think the budget situation is something that every school district is facing with just how our state funds education, with a good portion of it being derived from property taxes, which I think that's unfortunate. It would be wonderful if we just had a set budget where every school was receiving more of a set amount rather than some schools being able to have a higher amount they can spend on students because they can raise property taxes. And I know taxes is always a difficult issue. I would like to see as much money as possible spent on our schools. So I guess first I would prefer to see the state increase their portion there. If, so whatever we can do with our legislature to get more of that state dedicated funding so that it's not having to be passed down to our local taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Busta.
Wow, what a question. I know people say, well, you can't just keep throwing money at it, and the people that say that, I don't think understand what school districts do and how expensive it is, and it's we need more money to do what you want us to do, and the kids that you want us to produce to go out in society and be, that world-class workforce that I think Willmar produces and has produced. It's amazing what we do with what we've got. Quick fixes, I don't know, you only have you either get it from the legislature, so you lobby hard and you hope they'll do something for you. You take a look at what individual school districts get based on property values, and you will find that we don't get as much as some school districts do. And if you look at those school districts, what programs they offer and their class sizes, you will notice a difference. If you don't get it from the legislature, you've got to go local, and that's a tough thing to do. They just passed a great referendum, and I'm impressed with that. So it's a tough one.
Mr. Abdi.
It's really a tough question for the budget situation, and it's facing for all the districts for the whole Minnesota. And it depends on how much we receive for the legislation. If we get enough budget for the legislation, it's good to spend for the district and to cover about like how much need we how much we spend for the school, like whether it's the classroom or the teachers, or depends on how need for the schools.
Thank you. Any of the three of you like to comment on this question? Mr. Frank?
I'd say too, from my limiting understanding of a lot of the funding, but I saw our enrollment for the K through 12 in the latest budget report showed that we've been pretty stagnant over the last 10 years, hovering around 4,000 to 4,100 to 3,900, and it's actually gone down slightly in that full 10-year period. And so I think a lot of it, if every one of those kids is worth funding from the government, I mean, that's got to go up. We have to retain them more, and I know my class in 04, when we were getting to high school, I think we were somewhere hovering around 315, 320 kids in a class, and by the time we graduated, just 4 years later, I believe we were around 265. And that is just, to me, a massively terrible ratio that we lost, about a 1/6 of the kids. So, I mean, got to retain them, find a way to do that. I think that's another thing where integrating the racial side more will help. But as it was talked about before too, try asking the community. Get out in the community like Music Matters. If you really need funding for something, go out into the community and say, hey, we're thinking this might have to be the next cut. Is there anyone out there willing to help us out, help add to the budget, get some money together, and hold on to fourth grade orchestra?
Sure.
Kubish.
I don't know, I haven't read a lot about the budget cuts and everything, but that's just, whether you're a city, a county, or school, you always have to talk about the budget and the cuts and what's going to go. And I would agree with Mr. Frank that if we're not going to get it from the state or federal, we need to start reaching out to our bigger local businesses, and it doesn't even have to be the bigger local businesses. I feel that we could just start reaching out and talking to people, because if we're going to grow as a school, we need to grow as a community first. Because if we don't grow as a community first, we will never grow as a school.
Thank you.
I guess I feel like a very grassroots person, because I think that if our budget is deficient, that we should reach out to our community and see what individuals have to offer, you know? Of course, they would have to go through some channels to be directed at what we'd want from them, but I think that it's a great thing for people who are maybe unemployed. You know, we just went through Genio last summer, laying off a lot of their workers or cutting their hours, and they're a great resource. We don't want to lose them, because we needed them when the plant started back up. So if we could have integrated them into something to make them feel powerful and, I want to say admired, but that's not the word I'm looking for, to give them status in the community, that'd be great. You know, I mean, I live next to a past Ridgewater professor, you know, and I always want to go over there and just pick his mind so I can learn, because I feel like a lot of people have gems that they don't even realize. And I think that we need to reach out to them and bring them in, instead of kind of shutting our doors and thinking about our money problems.
Well, thank you to all of you. Many questions. A few remain, but we are out of time. And it's important that we give each of you a couple of minutes for closing remarks. And we will begin with Jennifer Mendoza and proceed down the row. So you each have 2 minutes, or up to 2 minutes, for closing remarks.
Well, I would love a chance to serve on the Wilmer School Board. As I said, I have 4 children, but the truth is those are just the 4 children that I birthed. I have 5 children. I have a gifted child who was gifted to me, I like to call that. And I feel like having my daughter and the difficulties that she has grown up with has really opened my abilities as a parent. I'm never afraid to be told no. I just smile and walk away, ask anybody who knows me. I never feel bad about asking a question. That's just me, because I have to be the bridge for her between her education, and I would love to do it for the whole community.
Thank you. Mr. Kubish.
To just close, I would like to say thank you, League of Women Voters, and all of us candidates up here. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have a strong passion for both our school district, and especially the kids and the teachers within that. So I would just like to say I'd love the opportunity to serve on the school board, and I feel with where I'm at right now, I would bring quite a bit to it.
Thank you. Mr. Frank.
Yes, again, thank you very much for holding this forum. It's very, very fun to be on TV, and it's exciting. But I'll finish up by just saying what I believe I can add to the school board, which is, I mentioned earlier, I have absolutely I'll get the bad part out of the way, I have no education experience really besides growing up and being in the school system growing up. But I feel my training so far in life, especially what I received at law school, lends itself very well to the position. I mean, it's a governmental position. Like I said, I have experience writing and reading legislation. And not only that, but almost no experience in the education system working in it is almost beneficial in my mind, because in a position like this, you want to be neutral. You don't want to have biases, and if you were working in the system, chances are you're going to come out with a bias somewhere. So you don't necessarily want an ex-teacher being on the board or something along those lines. So I would, that's really gonna, I'm sure Education Minnesota is really happy with me now, but I'll end there.
Mr. Busta.
Well, I've been on a few boards, and there were some attorneys on those boards. They were always an asset. They were. They were very well organized. When I retired a few years ago, I hadn't thought about school board. I thought about grandchildren and traveling and those kinds of things. I think what got me thinking about this was when that referendum passed. It's huge, and in our history, it's usually taken a second time, rephrase it, go out, work all the rotaries, and but this time it passed. I was impressed with that. It had me taking a look at what was being said about the school, watched a few school board meetings. My connection with the school, there were things that I was missing. I'd been there for so long. I knew so many people. It was such a big part of my life. Working alongside of that school board, I had a lot of great mentors. So for me, it's the next step, and I'm hoping that the voters will see that as well, that I have some unique skills and experiences. For those who know me, they know I'm very collaborative. So I appreciate you guys doing this tonight. Without this, this is one of those things where communications is huge. Thank you.
Mr. Boss.
Yeah, again, I'd also like to, again, thank the league for putting this event on and the other candidates, and I hope it was a learning experience for those that are in attendance and those that are listening on TV or radio or wherever you may be, or listening on the online in the future. But I have a great love for this community, and as I said in my opening remarks, I feel our school system is a vital part of our community, and I've been active in a number of different organizations in the community, and I just felt like joining the school board was a next step to continue my involvement. And I'll take my passion and learn about the issues and be a good voice of reason for the school board. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. And Mr. Abdi.
Thanks for the legal voters, and thanks everybody who get time to attend for this. And I'm very excited to attend this, and I'm very happy to serve for the community, and I will look forward to serve for the community of Willmar.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight and for stepping up and volunteering to run for school board. One of you will be so fortunate to be elected. And I want to emphasize again, the election, the special election is May 16th, and the polling place is the WEAC building. For all of those in our school district, go to WEAC, and you can vote all day long on the 16th of May. And as a reminder for all of you, especially telling your neighbors and friends, they can tune onto RAC Channel 18 or 181 and follow this day after day this week if they have time. The Wednesday session, that is tomorrow, will be at 11:30 in the morning and 8:30 in the evening, 11:30 and 8:30. On Thursday, day after tomorrow, it's 2 in the afternoon. On Friday, 11:30 and 8:30, again, morning and evening. Saturday, 6:30 in the evening, and next Sunday, 7:30. And many of you need the flexibility of checking on demand. So go to the City of Willmar website, and that is wilmarmin.gov, wilmarmin.gov, and you can access this evening's candidate forum at any time on demand. So we encourage our citizens to listen again, listen for the first time, learn, and decide who you're going to vote for on May 16th. So thanks to the audience out here. Thank you very much. And for all of you that are listening live on RAC tonight, and especially thank you also to the West Central Tribune, because there's a person in the audience who will be writing a story about this tonight. And we also had a photographer, so we appreciate their participation. Thank you, Linda. And we are thankful that we have 6 citizens in this school district that will come forward for a special election. And may we be so fortunate next fall when we have many more candidate forums for different government positions. So again, our thanks from the League of Women Voters of the Willmar area.